Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of From Stuck to Limitless. I am your host, Marie McKenzie. This is a show where we bring you fire starters and change makers with tips and topics to up level your life from stuck to limitless. This evening from the Treasure Coast of Florida, we have Mindi Fetterman, the CEO and founder of the Inner Truth Project. And without any further ado, Mindy, tell our listeners who you are and some of what you do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, my friend. It's been a long time since
It's
we've
been
been
a
in
while.
conversation together, so I'm thrilled to be in your presence, even though it's virtually. I always just love your energy and your smile, and we're not going
And
to
I
get
yours.
into how heartbroken I am that you left me. We'll leave that for another day. But I am the founder, executive director of a nonprofit here on the Treasure Coast that serves survivors of sexual trauma. I always have to think about that wording, not serves. That's not correct. That's not grammatically correct. We're not serving people. We're providing services, right? So, and also, just I want to give you a little note. We use a lot of humor because it's a difficult topic. So
Yes.
we provide services for people who've experienced rape, sexual abuse, incest, any type of sexual violence. So we offer them opportunities to have individual therapy, group support, art therapy, equine therapy, a whole host of different modalities for them to, just as you said, move from feeling stuck to really living their best lives and being limitless.
Yes. Thank you so much. And as a survivor myself, I know what sexual trauma does to the individual. Tell us a little bit of, on our listeners, the effect sexual violence has on the total being, mind, body, spirit.
Well, it's a really great question and dialogue. It's actually probably something we could talk about for hours and hours and hours. And literally, every day that I do this work, I'm learning more about the effects of trauma, not just sexual trauma, but all
Right.
trauma. And it's almost overwhelming to realize how much of the the road that we travel is paved by our experiences. That's not to say that it doesn't have to be a joyful path, but it really isn't just what we think, what's in our mind, but so much of our biological makeup is changed by trauma. Our organs are affected by trauma. Our anatomy, the way that we even hold our body, our skeletal system, everything is affected by trauma. So like you say, it is mind, body, spirit, top to bottom. So a lot of people think if you've been raped or you've experienced sexual abuse, that you may have anxiety or depression, or you may end up in a life of dealing with substance use disorder, something like that. But it's even more. I would encourage your readers or your listeners to try to find some information about the ACEs. It's a study that came out many years ago, but it's been talked a lot about in recent years about adverse childhood experiences and how early childhood trauma really can change the course of somebody's life and really sets you up, if you don't deal with it, for a lot of negative health outcomes, not just the emotional outcomes. So people don't realize, if you're dealing with high blood pressure or gastro issues, kidney issues, a lot of back problems, or
Heart issues.
reproductive, all of it is connected to trauma. And sometimes it's kind of overwhelming for people, and that's why they stay stuck. It's just too much to even deal with. But when you take that first step to deal with just even talking about it, you're taking a first step to not just emotionally letting it out, but also dealing with your physical health too. So it really is a gift.
Awesome, awesome. What would you say to someone who is like a friend or family member to someone who has been violated and is currently dealing with the effects of the unresolved trauma? How would you encourage them to go about supporting that individual?
Well, the first thing I would ask them, again, you're asking me if it's a friend or a family member, right? So the first thing I would
Yes,
ask them is, why are you keeping this to yourself? What are you afraid of? Because sometimes when we can get to the root of what the fear is, we can kind of dismantle what is true, right? And so we call our organization the Inner Truth Project. We want to get to the truth. Are you afraid that you're going to be judged? Are you afraid that you're not safe? Are you afraid that it's your fault that happened what happened? So let's discuss what's keeping you in that fear and flip it, find what the truth is. And then I would share what really is out there as a resource, and that, as cliche as it is, you're not at all alone. You're a survivor. I'm a survivor. It's 1 in 3 girls before the age of 18, which is
yes.
like
That's
mind-blowing, right?
mind-boggling, right?
Everywhere. And for men, it's 1 in 6. And even if you're one of these people listening that doesn't believe in statistics or thinks, that the numbers are skewed and it's fake news, whatever you believe, that's fine. It's still one too many, right? And we know that
Yes.
we don't talk about this issue. It's so taboo. It's underreported. But all you have to do is just ask around or tell somebody you heard this radio interview, and someone's going to say, oh, I know somebody who this happened to, right? So then it's the snowball effect. So I would tell that person, listen, you're not the only one, and you don't have to share all the details. What's the harm in just taking a little step? And you're not going to be in this process by yourself. Isn't it
Right.
better than the alternative?
Yes, right. I speak about sexual assault and trauma and survivors. So the subjects we are discussing is very dear to my heart. It's not cushy, but we have to deal with it. And it's time people get off the fence and be an active participant instead of a silent bystander. I'm glad you mentioned men, because male victims, because of the stigma, oh, you're a man, get over it. So, you don't talk about this, you don't cry. So they don't ask for help as much as women may come forward. What would you say to that? How can we encourage your male victims to step out of the shadows more than they have been?
That's a really great question. I'm glad that you asked that. For men, the stigma is even greater because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times their abuser, their perpetrator is also a man, right? Not always.
Yes.
So the whole act that they've experienced, the whole victimization, calls into question in their mind their sexuality. So not only are they thinking about what happened to them, but they're thinking about, does this mean that I like men, right? Yes. So there's even more of a reason for them to stay quiet. And then, as you mentioned, well, I'm a man, so I wasn't manly enough to fight it off, or, all the things that go through their head. And listen, as a woman, I know how crazy I am, so I can only imagine what's going on in a guy's head, right?
Right.
And I'm using the word crazy just in fun. So I don't want anyone to yell at you that I use the word. But with our men, what I would say is, when you get online or you pick up the phone and you call a place like the Inner Truth Project, there's no shame, there's no guilt. We're not looking at you as a man, a woman. We're looking at you as an individual. This is not a gender issue. It's not a political issue. It's not an age issue. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, anything in between. sexual violence affects people. And it's not necessarily about the sex. Somebody is targeted because somebody's a perpetrator and somebody's a target. And once we can explain to people how your body shuts down during victimization, that it has nothing to do with you not being able to fight it off because you're not strong enough, or you reacted a certain way because you enjoyed it. Once you can break it down to the science of it, people start to let go of that, oh, it's not my fault.
Right.
And that frees them up to receive the love and the support that they deserve, that we all deserve. So I always, when I'm in a room and I'm giving presentations, I'm always talking to the men, because I know that they're survivors in that room and they'll never talk about it.
Right.
And that's okay. As long as they hear the message that there's nothing wrong with them. They may never come forward. They may be listening right now. They're not going to call you. They're not going to pick up the phone. That's okay. Women like to call each other and talk and spill our guts, right? A man may never do that. You don't have to tell your story to heal.
Right.
Just hear that you are okay. You are not dirty. You are not shameful. You didn't cause it, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Right. Yes. And the statistics are just crazy when you think about it. Every 68 seconds, someone in the US is sexually assaulted. And every 9 minutes, the victim is a child. That is just unbelievable when you think about it. It's like we're walking around brushing shoulders with victims every day, and any of us could be a victim because perpetrators are just everywhere. It could be anyone, male, female, parents in the home, siblings, neighbors, in our churches, schools, you name it. They're not always running around in the street. They pray where they're trusted. I mean, mine was in the home, and so many children, especially, are suffering, students in college, and we need to raise our voices. And I applaud you for your organization and the amazing work you're doing. I know I was once a member on your board and I relocated, and I'm coming back to Port St. Lucie, just kidding. But we need more voices. I know that the conversation is changing. There is more people talking about it, but there are too many people who are turning a blind eye. Too many silent bystanders. Speak to the bystanders. Speak to those who know about victimization and are not speaking up, not saying anything, even when the victim is a child. Speak to them.
Well, I want to say something. I want to go back for just a second, because you said something that was interesting. You're 100% correct. Most victims, and I don't call them victims, I call them survivors, but it's just because I feel like it's more empowering. But most people who have been victimized do know their perpetrator. And we still very much as a society teach stranger danger, right? And it is not the people that we don't know. I mean, sometimes, but it's rare. And I don't know the number off the top of my head statistically, how many people are perpetrated against by people they don't know, but majority.
I think the last report I read, 90% know their perpetrators.
Exactly. So we need to take stranger danger and reframe that to teaching strange behavior that's dangerous.
Right. I like that.
So if it's someone I know and their behavior is strange, how do I react to that danger? That's more appropriate. And to segue into talking with representing the people around us, our children are voiceless as their protector, to be a bystander. It's trusting our gut, right? So many times I hear people come to me and say, I have a feeling something's going on, but I don't really know what to do. And that's okay. People don't want to get involved, but I often think about myself as a child and what would have happened if somebody thought, I'm going to say something. It could have made all the difference in my life. It could have made the difference in your life, right?
Yes.
And so, especially as women, we're often told, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're crazy, or
Yes.
you're making up stories, right? But
Mind your business.
mind your business, right?
Yes.
But we all have that voice, whether you call it spirit or God or Jesus or intuition,
Gut.
we all have it.
Yes, the gut.
Gut. So listen to your gut. And when you hear or you feel something, you don't have to know what to do. You don't have to have an answer. A bystander just takes action. Even if it's just calling the authority, or if it's telling somebody who is a professional, it doesn't mean you have to. I mean, we all watch NCIS, right? We all watch ID Discovery. I always think I'm going to be the one to solve all the crimes. We're
Yeah.
not asking people to do that. You're not
Right. That's not our job.
not our job. But your job is, if you feel something isn't right, tell somebody. That's all you have to do. It could make all the difference. So that's being an active bystander, as opposed to being passive, where sometimes hindsight's 2020, people say, yeah, I always thought something was suspicious.
Right.
Why didn't we do anything?
Right. And you find that especially when the perpetrator is in the family, and most of the times somebody knows. Somebody knows. I had someone reach out to me, and she had been victimized, her daughter, her granddaughter, and then her grandson. So it's blind eye in the family, pushing it under the rug. Nobody gets therapy, nobody gets healing, and the cycle is repeated. Just speak up, do something,
And I understand, because you don't want to falsely accuse anybody. There are people who make up stories. We want to trust people when they tell us what's happening, but do 100% of the people tell the truth 100% of the time? No. So sometimes there's this fear, like, I don't want to get involved. It's not my business. I don't know if it's really true. I don't want to accuse somebody of something that's not real. I don't want to blow up their whole family, end up putting a kid in foster care. We go to that place, we awfulize, worst case scenario. And again, that's not our job. Your job is just call the authority, the appropriate person, and just share your gut and your intuition. Because if there is something, yes, it will go, most of the time, not always, it will go in the right direction. And there are consequences sometimes. I have a woman that we work with who suspected something, and she lost a friend over it. And, she had to make peace with that because she knew that it was protecting a child. So, we weigh these difficult things in the world.
Yes. And we need to do something so the victim can get treatment. The victim needs to heal. So if nothing is done, then that child grows up with that effects of unresolved trauma. And we know what the effects can be, outward promiscuity, drugs, alcohol, even sometimes being a perpetrator themselves.
Well, I want to just speak on that. That the whole cycle of becoming a perpetrator is one of the things that keeps people silent, because it's actually not true. A lot of times, especially for men, they think, if my friends and family know that I was molested as a child, they're going to think that I'm going to molest my own children. And that's actually not accurate. Molesters molest children. Perpetrators perpetrate against people. If you've been victimized, that doesn't make you a perpetrator. Have you ever molested a child?
No.
Neither have I.
That's not what I was implying. But go ahead.
Well, I think it's important just to say, because
I appreciate you clarifying. Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes we say, if you've been victimized, right, you can end up living a life with emotional disorders and drugs and alcohol, and you can become a perpetrator. But but it's not typically how that works.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
there is a stigma attached to it, and people think if people know what happened to me, they're going to assume I'm going to do it to another child, and it's not the case. It's
No.
just accurate.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to say about your organization, how people can reach you if they need your services or donate?
Other than begging for you to move back and be on our board,
Yes.
other than that, well, I will tell you this: we just celebrated our 10th year, a decade,
Wow.
providing our services, and we're so honored to do the work that we do. We're a small community-based organization, so everything that we do, we keep it low or free, reduced cost rate, so we can make it affordable for everyone that we work with. And we're able to do that with the generosity of our community. So we do get funding from the Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County, where we're located, and the United Way of St. Lucie County. And then everything else is from family foundations or generous donors, like when they hear something on the radio or they read about us. And so it's because of the kindness of people helping us that we're able to in turn be partners in other people's healing journey. So we're always grateful when people reach out and want to learn about us, and they can go to our website, which is innertruthproject.org. And they can also call 772-200-4599. And if they're interested in just finding out about our services, or even if we're not the right place, but they want a referral someplace else, we're happy to talk to them.
Hey, great, great, great. Thank you so much, Mindi. Any last thoughts that you want to leave our listeners?
I think you just froze up. Oh, there you are. Okay. Well, I would just say if you're listening to this and it sparks an emotion in you, because you yourself have experienced some sexual trauma, or you know somebody and you've not dealt with it, it's okay, but it never goes away. People think by ignoring it, it didn't exist. At some point, something will trigger a memory, a thought, a reaction, and it will come out when you're not ready to handle it or you don't have the tools to handle it. And each and every person deserves, as your show is called, to live limitless. Why have limits on things in your life just because you are embarrassed or feel shame when that doesn't belong to you? That shame
exactly
is scary. So if you're listening and it sparks an emotion for you, give us a call, drop us an email, and we'd be so honored to talk to you.
Okay, thank you so much, dear listeners. Another great episode from Stuck to Limitless. I am your host, Marie McKenzie, and I'd love to have Mindi back another time. Thank you so much, Mindi.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.